Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholes. This week we're catching up with Blondine, a story from Comtesse de Ségur, or Sophie Ségur. And this is a story about, well, a princess and her father, her evil stepmother. Of course, there's a younger sister involved, and it's really the trials and tribulations between the stepmother and the princess, Blondine. We left off with Blondine being lured into the Forest of Lilacs by her young confidant, Blondine, who is now dead. This is the Forest of Lilacs. When Blondine entered the forest, she commenced gathering the beautiful branches of lilacs. She rejoiced in their profusion and delighted in their fragrance. As she made her selection, it seemed to her that those which were more distant were still more beautiful, so she emptied her apron and her hat, which were both full, and filled them again and again and again. Blondine had thus busily occupied herself for about an hour. She began to suffer from the heat and to feel great fatigue. She found the branches of lilacs heavy to carry and thought that it was time to return to the palace. She looked around and saw herself surrounded with lilacs. She called Blondine, but no one replied. "I have wandered further than I had intended," said Blondine. "I will return at once, though I am very weary. Blondine will hear me, and will surely come to meet me." Blondine walked on rapidly for some time, but she could not find the boundaries of the forest. Many times she called anxiously upon Blondine, but he did not respond, and at last she became terribly frightened. "What will become of me, all alone in this vast forest? What will my poor papa think when I do not return? And Blondine? How will he dare go back to the palace without me? He will be scolded, perhaps beaten. All this is my fault, because I would leave my carriage to gather lilacs. Unfortunate girl that I am! I shall die of hunger and thirst in this forest if the wolves do not eat me up this night." Weeping bitterly, Blondine fell on the ground at the foot of a large tree. She wept for a long time. At last, her great fatigue mastered her grief. She placed her little head upon her bundle of lilacs and slept peacefully. And that is The Forest of Lilacs, Part 3 in the tale of Blondine. It's a nice little breather after the heaviness that was Blondine Lost. And I like that. Sometimes we need a break. This is Dan Scholes for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget that if you'd like to help support the podcast, you can head over to patreon.com/folktaleproject, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to every story told. As always, thank you so much for listening.